Hello everybody and welcome to Geopolitical Trends. My name is David Oualaalou. President Biden, get this guys, President Biden set conditions for talking with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. In this video, I'm going to provide you some insights into what led to this statement just issued today by the White House during a press conference with the visits of the French President Emmanuel Macron. So before I delve deeper into this topic, please remember to subscribe and smash that notification button so you will be notified every time I upload a new video. And thank you for your support. Let's dive into this. I didn't want to wait till a few days, so I wanted to just get you guys the information with a brief analysis on and my take on it, so you be aware of what's going on. So President Biden sets the conditions for speaking with his counterpart, Russian President Vladimir Putin, while at the same time the American president issued a statement. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov accused the United States of leaking the news about the bilateral intelligence meeting that was held a few weeks ago in Turkey. I did a video on this, if you recall, and I did tell you that at that time this wasn't covered much. So I get to the information certain ways, so I wanted to share it with you. Well, now the foreign minister of Russia, Sergey Lavrov, is accusing the US of leaking the information intentionally, that is. But we're not going to be talking too much about that. We're going to be talking about why all of a sudden President Biden is sort of hinting at negotiations with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. So during a press conference with the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, which just happened actually, President Biden said that he is ready to talk with the Russian President if, and this is a big if the President Putin shows his desire to end the war in Ukraine. This is according to President Biden. And in return for that, President Biden stressed that he will not negotiate with the Russian President Vladimir Putin before understanding with the European partners, considering that Russia's victory basically in Ukraine is out of question. Well, this is already nonsense to begin with for two reasons. One is that Russia is not going to just walk away after all this. And a defeat is not an option. Two, the Europeans have no say into all this. I mean, how much influence can they exert on the US? None, in my opinion. But there are still certain dynamics which I will get into shortly to highlight to you the possibility that it might go that direction as far as negotiations between the US and Russia. If you notice that the president didn't say we're going to negotiate with the Russians along with our European partners, which means what? The US will claim the victory, shall we say, that we put the European in a better conditions. So if you can just see, if you can see the writing between the walls. And this is why President Biden stressed that the only way to end the so-called the Ukraine war, or the war in Ukraine rather, is for Russia to withdraw from Ukraine. It's nonsense. Russia's not going to do that no matter what. And Russia is preparing to escalate if they have to. As a matter of fact, with winter getting closer now, Russia is prepositioning itself. They trained for harsh conditions. So this is not new to them, to the Russians that is. And in a related context, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov, as I mentioned at the beginning, accused the Americans of leaking the news of the bilateral intelligence meeting that was held in Turkey about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I did talk about it in a previous video. You can check it out there. So during the press conference, which was in Moscow, Lavrov and the conference was about the European security issues. Lavrov argued that it was the United States that insisted on the secrecy, get this guys, that the United States insisted on the secrecy of the communication channel between the head of the US intelligence agency, CIA, that is William Burns, and his counterpart of the Foreign Intelligence Service of Russia, his name is Sergey Lavrov, and that the American counterparts, William Burns, and the Russians director of the Foreign Intelligence, Sergey, their conversation will be held confidential. But apparently, the moment they met, later on, it was a leak. So Lavrov explained that it was what he called the American colleagues. What he meant by this is, just FYI for you guys to know, as one who worked in Washington and I understand those dynamics, there is always behind the scenes channel that is maintaining a relationship between the US and Russia, the US and China, and those channels usually are not known to the masses, they are known to the public. Those are whether either within the military entities, apparatus, or the intelligence apparatus. But there are always channels going back and forth between the two to avoid any miscommunication or miscalculation, that is. So Sergey Lavrov saying that it was the American colleague who proposed the meeting between William Burns, the CIA director, and his counterpart, the director of the Foreign Intelligence Service in Russia, Narskin. And it was agreed upon. And as a matter of fact, Sergey Lavrov added, and I quote here, "The Americans themselves told us 10 times that this channel should be completely secret and it should not be announced so that no one knows anything, so that it is a serious channel and it is not exposed to any foreign propaganda and media intrigue. We agreed, but as soon as the officials arrived in Ankara, the news leaked immediately. I do not know from where, from the White House, from the Foreign Ministry, I do not know, but the news leaked." End of quote. So it tells you right there. And as I said, I talked about this in a previous video, you can check it out, about the meeting that took place in Turkey. And there is an upcoming one on December. As a matter of fact, it's already started between, it's not started yet, but the dates are set between November 29th and December 6th. One of those days, usually in the intelligence matters, they will not disclose the dates for security reasons. But here is the interesting aspect about all this. Of course, the declaration of the President Biden's as far as establishing negotiations with Russia. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, a guy who's clueless by the way anyway, vowed on Thursday to continue providing support to Ukraine, which is nonsense. But this, it's also for domestic consumption. There are those, just FYI, within the West that they want to see this conflict drag on for so long because they're profiting from it. Let's just say it straightforward. And this is why the Europeans now are waking up to the reality that the Americans are making more money at their expense, at the Europeans' expense, that is. So Europeans basically lost their minds, I mean, I'm not laughing out of laughing, but it's because that's what it is. They couldn't take stand on it. And here is why. Now you have a senior European officials who asked that his name remain anonymous. This official said today, by the time you watch this video, it will be a day or two, but said today, right after the President of the United States issued a statement of negotiating with the Russians, the possibility of negotiation or negotiating with the Russian, this senior official, a European official, said that he called on China to pressure Russia while at the same time Ukraine warned of a new wave of missile strike by the Russians across the country. So here's my take into all this. Just to put it, if I am to put my geopolitical analyst hat. And as I always say, you have to look for the trends, okay? What the trends to this is what I'm going to be sharing with you. You have to put these statements by President Biden within the context of the French President Emmanuel Macron visit to the United States as we speak, because it is my belief, and this is my personal opinion, it is my belief that Macron has told President Biden, either you start the negotiations with the Russians or we're going to do it ourselves. The US, President Biden that is thinking in terms of, no, I can't let the Europeans get credit. I better get on it. That's one. Second one, you have to think in terms of the war fatigue that is now settling not only in the US, but also in Europe. Okay? Because people are starting to say, okay, enough of this. And the third element has to do with the upcoming US presidential elections in 2024. Yeah, it starts right now. The reason being because the Republican Party, the House Republican leader, Kevin McCarthy, he warned that his party, the Republican Party, will not write a blank check for Ukraine if they win the majority in the House. So this is, to me personally, the most glaring sign yet of growing skepticism within the Republican Party about US financial support to Ukraine. You can just see where this is going. And if this is not enough for you, we'll add one more thing. And that thing is, winter is sets in across Ukraine. If you look at now, there is snow in some parts of Ukraine. So Russia's aerial assaults on the country show no sign of letting up. Because Russia usually, as I said, is trained for those harsh conditions. So the question becomes for us to think is, what are the outcomes? What are the possible scenarios? And one of the questions that you need to ask is, could the two parties, what I mean by parties, Russia and Ukraine, talk? Well, Ukraine cannot do it because Ukraine follows the order of its masters. And Ukraine is in no position to negotiate to begin with, unless the US gives the green light. This is why President Biden initiated the statements, because he wants to sort of take credit should this move forward by saying, look what I did. I brought peace to the Ukrainian conflict. So this is why I wanted to come on the air and share this with you before you start reading the headlines. So if you like this video, make sure to hit that like button so you can help me out with the algorithm. And as always, remember, geopolitics impact your daily life in more ways than one. Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.